Hello and welcome to another episode of A Gay in the Life.
I'm Blake.
I'm Garrett.
And today our amazing guest is Jason Mitchell Kahn. He is our wedding planner, gay guru to the stars. How are you, Jason?
Well, with an introduction like that, I'm even better. Thank you for that. I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's really nice to see you both.
For those of you that don't know, we were supposed to have our wedding this coming February, but sadly we've had to push it. But more to come later in the episode.
Yeah. But yeah, we just wanted to chat with you a little bit because I didn't really know when we're planning our wedding and everything right now, obviously, of course you know, and we didn't really know how to go about certain things because it's pretty much a non-traditional wedding. And I know that you especially deal with a lot of queer weddings. Is that right?
That's correct. I have to say, I feel like almost every conversation that I have with a same-sex couple to talk about weddings begins with essentially what you just said, which is we don't really know where to begin.
You know, the main thing that I thought about when we just started thinking about a ceremony, for example, is, you know, one of us is not going to walk down the aisle second to have someone, you know, standing at the end. And we still haven't even kind of sussed that out on our end and talked to you about it. But yeah, what are some things that you've encountered, you know, other examples like walking down the aisle that people kind of have to figure out their own way?
Well, our lives are not traditional, so why would our weddings be, is a question that I often ask people. And I think therein lies the opportunity to be really creative and make the wedding more personal. The only thing you actually have to do to get married is have someone who is ordained to perform a wedding, sign your marriage license, have witnesses, and the two of you have to sign. The rest is all pomp, circumstance, and tradition. And so the sky is really the limit. I mean, when we talk about what goes into not only what's on site, such as your ceremony into your reception, but even things that you would do before, such as sending out an invitation. That's one of the first places that often I find that we have to be creative as queer people.
How so? What do you say there that's different?
Well, a really traditional wedding invitation is usually thrown by the bride's parents, inviting their guest to come as she's given away to a groom. And that is certainly not the case for most same-sex couples. A lot of times I think that same-sex couples want everyone to just feel included and that we're not fitting into those assumed roles of the bride and the groom's side. So it's like, we invite you to share in our special day. And then, you know, as a couple, you know, the first thing you do is you get engaged and you start these plans. And then there's a lot of activities that happen before the wedding that also fall into the role of gender stereotypes. And so that can be anything from how gay people do bachelor or bachelorette parties or weekends. A lot of my gay couples have done this as a joint experience because their friends are really mutual. I think it's another exciting opportunity to say, well, what is really going to be fun? And it's a chance for your friends who are in helping plan this, say, like, if we were talking about you, what is going to make this day or this weekend really reminiscent of Garrett or really reminiscent of Blake? Like, what are the things that they love? Is it a whole night of like 80s movies that we're going to dress the part or something like that? You know, engagement parties are another place that differ because, again, it depends on if the parents want to throw that, if the couple wants to throw that, or they're just going to say, we don't need another event, which is what most of my couples do. They say, a wedding is enough. We don't need an engagement party to kick it all off. In advance of the wedding, it's also commonplace to register. And that's another place where I found that a lot of same-sex couples they'd rather use this now as an opportunity to do something better for the world. And so a lot of my couples have registered for charities that speak to them, from the Rainbow Railroad to Black Lives Matter. I mean, all sorts of things that are just a chance to say, what matters to us most is that you're coming to the wedding, and if you do feel like you want to give something, this really, really speaks to us. So that's stuff that all happens, you know, in advance of the wedding.
Are there any queer traditions that you're seeing being born that maybe people are adopting within our community that are starting to become what queer people can have as traditions?
Definitely. I mean, there's people that do it both ways, and that's why I think that's the beauty of all this. It's always about just having these conversations. There's no real right or wrong answer. It's just about the couple identifying what makes the most sense for them. I've had a lot of couples that have felt like it's hard to just pick one person, so they don't have necessarily like a maid of honor or a best man. They have a core group. You know, a lot of us have our sort of chosen families. And so they'll lump everyone together. They'll just say, these are the best boys, or these are the best girls, or these are the people that honor is a way to not even include gender at all. Some people call it their party, their wedding party, or, you know, the squad, you know, things that have become sort of part of our vocabulary. And I think a wedding is great when you identify with what's sort of trending that year.
I have a question about, certain places that may not allow, same-sex or just queer weddings at the venues. What happens if you encounter something like that? Have you had couples that might have their hearts set on a certain location, whether it be, a church or a mosque or something that just doesn't allow that? And then how do you deal with that?
Well, it has come up in conversation. It hasn't gotten to the point where we've gotten to a legal battle with a place like that, mainly because I think even if a venue is beautiful aesthetically and even potentially has some meaning to you, if they don't want that wedding to take place, for me, it doesn't feel like, then why go through it? Like, you're kind of already walking into a venue that has a bad energy associated with it. If they're unwelcoming to gay people getting married there, we have so many places, luckily, that have embraced us that I'd much rather give the business to. And I feel like when we talk about finding venues, I often describe it like a real estate experience. You kind of want to walk in and have that connection that you would if you were buying a house or apartment. You can feel that it's where you want to live. And that's what you want with your wedding, too. You want to walk in and be like, yes, this is where we're going to get married. And so if it's a place that doesn't accept gay people, I don't imagine you're going to have that feeling. I mean, it's easy for a couple living in Los Angeles or New York to come to me and, it's piece of cake to find a place to do the wedding and the team that we need to make it happen. But then as I get to know them and we learn about their upbringing, or if their parents never accepted them as gay, if they still haven't come to terms with them coming out, let alone getting engaged and getting married, all of that is very interesting and important to me because it affects how we do the wedding. And so it kind of goes back to your earlier question of some of the things that affect how we plan a gay wedding, which is within the ceremony and what the parents' involvement is going to be. I've had some people have wanted to get walked down the aisle by both their parents, and some don't even want their parents to walk, even if they're showing up, because it just feels like the wedding is more about their life that they claimed on their own after they left their childhood home. I've had parents that refuse to come to weddings, of their children that have hired me. I've had parents that have showed up and have left because they thought they could sit through it, and witnessing the love and words that have been exchanged have polarized them and made them feel uncomfortable that they've had to leave. Versus, thankfully, the other side of the spectrum, parents who don't think it's any different that their children identify as queer and are so embracing to them, to their future in-laws, to all of the chosen family and friends that show up. So I see the whole range of it.
When we initially sat down for coffee just to chat, I remember you bringing up and saying, well, how are your families with your relationship and with your, sexuality and how you identify and all that? And I was like, I never even thought that, a wedding planner would ask that question.
The experience of working together as a planner and with a couple is very personal. And so I tell every couple that potentially, wants to chat with me about like my pricing and how I work, I'm like, but we should still meet because it's so important that our energy clicks, because we're about to embark on something that's going to get very, very personal. It's so much more than just picking out tablecloths and invitations and all of those things.
And cake tastings.
Cake tastings are
which is what we're really excited for.
The tastings are always a high point. But I think that's part of it. I'm so endlessly curious whenever I meet people, not even just clients. I mean, if I go on a date or just meet a new friend, it's so endlessly interesting that it makes my job never get monotonous, because every couple brings something new to the table. And so I love to learn about that, and then also ask the question, so why do you want to get married? Because the word marriage has such a different meaning to people now. I mean, especially gay people, because we didn't have it as a right until this last decade. And so I love knowing what it was that made a couple decide that it was important to go from the status that they had previously to say, but now we want to make this legal. We want to stand up in front of people and declare our love.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of A Gay in the Life.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for being with us and just chatting with us about, what it's like to organize a queer wedding, because it's so different, and, your information and insight is very valuable.
Thank you for having me. It was great to see you both.